Welcome to Slash Forward into the 7th installment of the Friday the 13th franchise, The New Blood. You know, the one with the psychic in it. Let's get to it. We start with some good old-fashioned opening context. For anyone who hadn't been paying attention, we're treated to narration over scenes of a rainy cemetery that fades into a slow pan, eventually confirming that J-Dog is still chained up at the bottom of Crystal Lake, because nothing is more important than the continuity of the mythos. We then cut to a young Carol Ann, who runs off after being rightly disturbed by a domestic dispute between her parents. She does one better than any 6-year-old runaway has ever done before when she actually manages to peace out on this small seafaring vessel. Her dad, desperate to get her back, spits some classic lies.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to!
But she's too savvy to fall for it. Instead, Tina wishes him dead and, through the power of positive thinking, makes it so. One more life goal she can now mark off her vision board. Despite this, she almost immediately feels the gravity and finality of her decision. Unfortunately for her father, she didn't have any of these feelings during the entire process of caving in the dock on him. Well, bye forever. We then cut to a grown Tina taking a drive back to the scene of the crime with her mom. We hear that they're yet again undergoing a form of acclimation therapy. Unlike Tommy Jarvis, they will be under the supervision of a doctor. When they arrive, we see that a group of teens has rented an adjacent cabin, and then they immediately dive into a therapy session where we discover the therapy is less about helping her manage her disturbing visions, and more about riling up her emotions to exploit her special abilities. When Dr. Cruz says the magic words,
"Your father's death,"
we witness the full manifestation of her power, and Tina barely recovers before Dr. Cruz creeps back in during a tender moment, causing her to run off and creating a perfect storm of emotions. She tries to psychokinetically wish her dad back to life, but as we all know, you have to be careful where you aim that stuff. In this case, she misses and accidentally works her magic on Jason's waterlogged corpse. She sees Jason briefly before passing out. When she's found, it's assumed that she was hallucinating. Later on, Nick shows up at the house and invites Tina to his cousin's birthday party next door. At that time, Nick's cousin Michael and his girlfriend happen to be wandering through the woods due to some prior car troubles. Before reaching the cabin and witnessing the majesty of his birthday lotus candle, Michael's girlfriend gets tacked to a tree, and Michael gets his spine split. Back at the party, everyone has a brief moment to get acquainted before Tina ruins it by having a vision of Michael dead, resulting in an effusion of emotional energy that messes up the party good. She runs back home to report out on her new vision. Unfortunately, the hard evidence goes missing before anyone can corroborate her story. Meanwhile, we have a brief interlude where Dan ventures into the woods to find some kindling for the fire and apparently deliver a machete to Jason, which happens promptly when he gets his spine punched in half. This could be a complete throwaway scene until Jason gets to the tent and announces himself to Dan's lady. She tries to pretend she's having a bad dream and covers up in her sleeping bag, resulting in one of the most revered kills in the entire series. Back home, Tina appears to be making progress as she allows herself to enjoy a moment of pleasantness, only to have it ruined again by the ever-present Dr. Cruz. We also get a scene back at the house confirming the teens, undaunted by the absence of the birthday boy, gear up for another full night of partying. That evening, Dr. Cruz gets the emotion machine running again and Tina finally pops off, flinging a TV across the room. As a result of the mounting aggravation, Tina and her mom resolve to leave that evening. Meanwhile, a young couple who happen to be dressed in completely opposite outfits decide to go skinny dipping for reasons.
You need a formal invitation?
No. He's wearing about 50 layers, from which he is unable to release his trim young body before Jason finds him. This results in her emerging from the water to a dead swimming partner with no time to process what's going on before being dragged back into the murky depths. Tina's mom finds evidence that Dr. Cruz has been exploiting them and confronts him with the evidence, which causes Tina to take off ahead of their scheduled departure. However, a waking vision causes her to veer off the road before she gets too far. She then stumbles into the woods while in a daze. We've now reached the part of the movie where having a plot becomes cumbersome to the task of killing off the characters. So everyone starts doing things for various reasons and finding that all roads lead to the negation of existence. To start, Maddie gets herself tarted up and goes off into the woods to find her crush, but only manages to get herself fatally hooked in a tool shed. This young couple is busy making amends after an earlier falling out and are disrupted by a noise outside their van. They assume it's Michael come to prank them and decide that a classic counter prank is much more fun and interesting than the activities in which they previously found themselves engaged. The trick is actually on them, however, and they find out exactly to what degree this is the case when they succumb to a head crush and an eye horning. Nick and Tina stumble upon Michael's corpse in the woods, bringing the weight of reality to Tina's visions and their current circumstances. Meanwhile, Jason's let himself inside. While Tina and Nick run back to find her mom and get her dad's pistol, we get conclusions to the remaining character arcs as David gets stabbed, Eddie gets hacked, and his lady friend gets tossed out the window. This next portion of the movie involves a lot of running back and forth in the woods and doesn't really give a good sense of space or direction. Tina's mom and Dr. Cruz interrupt Jason's yard work, and instead of running, the good doctor holds Ms. Shepard up as a human shield like a true scumbag. Nick flashes the gun gun around like a badass, and Tina ends up in the woods where she finds Dr. Cruz hiding behind some saplings. She finds out her mom is dead and decides to split up. This is a good idea, as almost immediately after leaving him, Dr. Cruz is chased down by a weed whacker wielding Jason. Tina then sees Jason lumbering through the wilderness and also finds his woodland treasure trove. Tina faces off and uses her powers in various ways to punish Jason, first by electrocution, then closing doors, throwing couches and heads, and then by bringing the front porch down on him. They presume he's dead, but he ends up pulling a super shredder on them and bursts into the house, wrapping up our last extraneous character in Melissa, in brutal fashion. Another protracted battle ensues that fails to get the job done. In the face of all this failure, Tina lures him out to the dock where she manages to get it right for once and bring her dad back. Hey, he looks alright, all things considered. He grabs Jason and drags him back to hell, which has to be at least a partial bummer for Tina. The movie then ends with Nick and Tina surviving and being carted off, with no dream sequences in this one. And that was Friday the 13th Part 7, running in circles in the woods. With the psychic powers, it was a bit of an unusual departure from the normal tropes of the series, something the fans would luckily never have to worry about again. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.